Welcome back to Innovation Tech Communities, yet another session. And we have Dan with us over here from USA, and he's going to be, discussing about the Microsoft 365. So, welcome, Dan, and stage is yours. Without further ado, let's
Thanks so
dive in.
much. Thanks so much. Hello, everybody. Welcome, global. Hello, world. And as mentioned, my name is Dan Ray, and I am here to share with you all the capabilities of Microsoft 365 groups. I called this session Microsoft 365 Groups Demystified, and I used Microsoft's Copilot to create my presentation. So if we take a look at the prompt that I used in Microsoft's Copilot to create a Microsoft 365 groups presentation, I came into my Copilot pane on the far right of PowerPoint and I said, create a presentation about Microsoft 365 groups. And Copilot was kind enough to complete that task with collaborate and communicate with Microsoft 365 groups. However, this is a great title. My session was called something different. So I could always come into Copilot in PowerPoint and I could say, let's see if we can do this, change the title to Microsoft 365 Groups Demystified. Mystified, if I can spell here. There we go. I think that's close. And we'll see if Copilot can do that for me. There we go. So assuming I spelled demystified correctly, we've now got a new title slide with Copilot. And if you're familiar with Microsoft 365 groups, these were originally called unified groups back 10 plus years ago from Microsoft. The idea was to create groups that could be used across the Microsoft 365, then Office 365 stack. And you can literally create these groups in seconds. You can add members from any of the applications that use the unified group, the Office 365 groups, or the now referred to as Microsoft 365 groups, and you can collaborate on files real time. And once you're a group member, you become a group member in all of these different applications. So the thing I would like to do is both use Copilot to maybe modify and come up with the PowerPoint that I will share with you all on LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn profile. If you go to linkedin.com/in/Stilldrey, STILLDREY, you will find my profile on LinkedIn. And so the first thing I would like to do is show you the creation of a group. If we come over here to my Azure portal, I'm looking at a user account. And I can look at the properties of a user account, and every user account in Microsoft's Intra ID has a department, a company name field, employee type, hire date, and information like office location. If I open the Intra ID information, going to portal.azure.com in a browser. I have to have rights to do this. I go to Intra ID, formerly known as Azure Active Directory. It's now an Intra management platform, and Intra ID are the users and the groups. I can see all of the rich groups that I have that are a group type Microsoft 365. And one thing you might notice in the membership type, and the reason I called this Microsoft 365 Demystified is to explain the different types of groups and the rights that you might need to create these groups. We can see here that I have several assigned Microsoft 365 groups and several dynamic membership groups that are Microsoft 365. So let's take a look at first All Finance, which is a group with a group type, membership type of assigned. With an assigned group type, we can look at the members, and there are no members listed. We can look at the owners to see if there's one or more owner. And if we have particular rights, we can add additional people to this group. So if we go find John Ray, we can add him as a additional owner, and I can go to members, and I can add somebody like Eva Ray as an additional member. And then if I go over to another Microsoft 365 application, like let's go to Teams, and let's log in as the right account here, sign in with another account, same account I'm using for my examples. I might be logged in. Let's see if I'm logged into Teams as the correct account. I am, thankfully. We can come down here to Teams. We can take a look at the different teams that I have. I may have hidden the All Accounting and the All Finance team. Here they are. We're looking at finance. I can click on Manage Team because I'm listed as an owner along with John. And Eva is listed as a member of the team. You'll notice that I have the ability to add members here as well. So from adding members to All Finance, I could say I also want to add Sam Ray as a member. So as you can see here, the Microsoft Intra ID now shows John Ray and Dan Ray as the team owners, and the members as Eva and Sam Ray. Now, if I pop over into my Outlook, we also have groups within Outlook. And this is where they got that original name, Unified Groups. Outlook had group concepts. Other applications like SharePoint had group concepts. The actual identity, which was Active Directory originally, designed under Windows 2000 24 years ago, and then Azure Active Directory, designed in the, what year do you think? Let's do that as our first interactive item today. What year do you think Azure Active Directory was created? And so I'd love to see if anybody knows that answer. Welcome, Kanga. Let's see what your questions are here. What are the key components of a Microsoft 365 group, and how do they facilitate collaboration within organizations? Excellent question. The key components of a Microsoft 365 group are a group type that you define when you create or when I modify the group. So we're looking at the All Finance group. And if we come down to the properties of the group, we can take a look at some of the key components that make up this group. And then I've shown you how the group relates to Teams. And the next thing we're going to take a look at is how it relates to Microsoft's Outlook. and the exchange side of things. So we can see the group right now is assigned. We've added a couple people to it, and we've seen how it works in Teams. Well, if I switch gears over to Outlook, the reason it got that name of unified groups originally is because it is available in both of these places. So if I look at the different groups that I have available, I should be able to find similar groups to what we're looking at. So let's look at the Everybody group. The Everybody group is a public group with 19 members. And the group in Outlook has settings. So to your question, how do they facilitate collaboration within an organization? Each group member, owner or member, even guests, can control how they get group email. So from a collaborative perspective, if I choose to only receive replies to me and group events, as opposed to email from all events and all email, or if I say I only want replies in my email to me, I can control the collaborative aspects of the group that I'm a member of from within Outlook, Teams, and now let's also look at a third place that these unified groups, then called Office 365 groups, and now referred to as Microsoft 365 groups, operate. If we come down to the Everyone group that we just looked at, or Everybody, we can see that it's a Microsoft 365 group and it's an assigned membership type. So let's head over to next I'm going to get a new tab here, our SharePoint for our environment. And let's take a look at let's just do this from the waffle. We'll go to SharePoint. The waffle's in the upper left. And here we can see several of our different SharePoint sites. And we can see we have an Everybody site in SharePoint. Now, if I edit that site, I can see that I have a general channel or general folder here within my documents library. I can see that I have some meetings. I have a test local to group, testing everyone from group. Excuse me. And I have an everyone notebook. Let's say that I wish to have a new SharePoint site. So I want to create a new site in SharePoint. I have a team site, which a team site allows me to create a private space to collaborate within my team. We have several examples. Employee onboarding sounds interesting to me. I have new people starting all of the time. So I'm going to use that as a template. And I'm going to call this all new interns because I have several interns starting at the company. Site description, everyone joining this spring as an intern for DESA Enterprises. And Kanka also asks, how can administrators configure and customize the groups to meet specific needs? That's the next thing we're going to look at. So great segue into our next topic. Because I have the capability to add sensitivity labels, super, super important, especially now that we'll also be talking about Copilot. I can say this is DESA confidential. Maybe they're working on a super secret project this spring, and so I want to make sure all of the interns are aware that this is confidential. We're going to add Sam to our newly created team, or sorry, team site within SharePoint. I need to say that very carefully because this isn't Teams, Microsoft Teams. This is a team site in SharePoint. And we could look for other people that I have within my directory, such as Ray Daniels. And we could add the two of them as members. So now I have created a team within the portal, and I've created a group within the portal, and I've created a team site within SharePoint called All New Interns. So let's go back to take a look at where this group shows up from the admin perspective. I'll refresh my groups view, and as we look at as our all named groups, we have an all new interns group, Microsoft 365, and it's assigned as the type. The next thing I want to get into is thinking about dynamic groups as opposed to assigned groups. So if I go into the properties of our all new interns, you'll notice the membership type is assigned. If I go to a dynamic user membership type, I can add a dynamic query. And we have that department that we talked about early in all intra IDs. When you set up an intra um, identity for a new user, you can list the department they belong to. And I have options like department equals, and I could say interns. And then I can add this as the qualifications for becoming a member of this group. So we've just saved our changes. If we go back to all groups and we look at refreshing this screen, we should now see that all new interns will show up as dynamic as soon as this saves here. Let's see if I did not save. I think I missed a save opportunity here. Let's do it again and see what I missed. Equals interns, add expression, save, and it's showing up as dynamic user. We save it here. After changing the group type, I get a warning that I'm changing it. That's the save button I neglected last time, was that I'm changing the features. Kanga also asks, besides specific needs, the needs of the organization mean I can use this across different products. So the all new interns started as my intern site for my SharePoint team site, but I can also turn that group into a Microsoft team for all my new interns and their employee onboarding experience. So Kanga asks what security and compliance features are available for this and how can administrators ensure data protection and governance. That's what we looked at here with our sensitivity label. So we'll follow that chain through to Microsoft Teams. We've said that all of these folks are coming on board, let's say for some new project that we're working on. And the project at this point for all these interns is confidential. It's not publicly available. So let's head over to Microsoft Teams and let's search for our team that we have created. We're going to discover new teams, and I'm looking for no suggested posts. Join team. I'm looking for interns. All. Search terms, teams for me, include DESA IT, PHFA, learning and development, IT pilot, and IT marketing and ITIL. If I'm an administrator role and I look from a perspective of the group, I can then see the group, all new interns, but I have to be an intern to be in that group. So let's create a new ID for that first intern that starts at DESA this spring. And I'd like from the audience, Navita, you guessed, to our question about when was Azure Active Directory created, 2005. You're close, definitely close. Azure was a code name, or sorry, there was a code name for Azure before it became Microsoft Azure, and it was released as Windows Azure in a particular year. I will give you a hint. It was more recent than 2005. You're warm. I'll say you're close with 2005. So if anybody else can look that up as we're talking about specifically the security and compliance pieces, um, I'll see if we can have a winner for our first question here. User principal name, let's set up the next account as Isabella. So we're going to set up an Isabella account. We're going to set it up at DESA Enterprises. We're going to set the display name as Isabella Freeman. We have an auto-generated password. I can copy that so I can send it to somebody. The account is enabled. I can go to properties, and besides first name, last name, user type, member, I can give a job title. Let's say we're working on Project X, and that Isabella is starting as an intern. And I think I called it interns. Let's confirm that real quick. We called it department equals interns, plural. So I want to make sure I have interns, employee ID, and other information. We can assign her to particular groups, roles, and then we have a review and create to create her account. Now I have an account that should be at the bottom once it refreshes here. For a user called Isabella. And if we take a look at the groups that Isabella is a member of, we don't see anything listed. However, she should be now a member of the group that we created for dynamic, all new interns. So we can see if we have any members or owners. I'm the owner. I become the owner by default by having rights to the global administrator. So your owners become the people that are global administrators. And then if we look at all members, I wonder if
Dan,
this is, yes.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Happy Saturday, everyone. So
Hi.
you just created that member, and so
Mhm.
how long does it take to create a member? I remember years ago, during Active Directory, it would take hours or days. How long does it take now?
Great question. User accounts and groups are almost instantaneous in the cloud. Some of these things you have to figure out if it's case sensitivity or something else from a standpoint of the propagation of our properties. So for instance, if I look at my account specifically and my properties of my account, and we go over to job information, I can see that I'm part of the accounting group right now, or department. So the user count is almost instantaneous. The group types, so if I look at all accounting, it's also a dynamic group. And if I take a look at my dynamic membership rule, we can see that I've got equals accounting, and it does look like it's case sensitive. I also have, if your name is John Ray, you are also eligible to be part of that group. Great question. So the groups here are, it looks like case sensitive as well. So I can go back to my all interns example. Towards the top, all new interns. Membership rules, I have interns lowercase. So we could add an expression and say this is an or, meaning I want either of these department spellings to be equal to membership to the group, interns. We save that. So this group has now been created, and we can come back over to, I think it was teams we were looking at, to see what teams I can see from a governance and compliance perspective. And let's see if we have any hidden teams. We've got the accounting and the finance team. I don't see all new interns. But I also, if I have rights, I can create a new team from Microsoft Teams. And from a governance and compliance perspective, we have private teams, we have org-wide teams, and we have public teams. If I create a private team, I can also give a private team a sensitivity label. So maybe I want to create a private team for the DESA confidential project for Project X. And this is on, this information is on a need to know basis. So I've now created a team from Outlook. I've created a team from within the Azure portal in specifically the Entra ID portal. And then for Project X, I could add Eva, maybe she's on the project, and as an owner. And what these dynamic groups allow me to do is avoid what I'm doing here, where I have to add people to the groups as they come on board. So the idea of the all interns would be a group that picks up if somebody's an intern, they automatically become part of the group. Creating a team also allows me different types of options for creating a team. So if we look at our from group option, you'll notice that we have our all new interns. It's private. And if you recall, because I'm a global administrator, Dan Ray, R-E-Y, not R-A-Y, you're never going to find me if you misspell my last name. But I can add a team surrounding the all new interns. We were going to use the SharePoint site for onboarding. Maybe we also want to have a team where our new interns can introduce themselves. So I have a channel called introductions. And my channel type is standard. I want every team member to have access. Introduce yourself here. And I can automatically add this to everyone's list of the channels that they see when they join or are added as an intern automatically in DESA. So the group, all new interns, also is available from Outlook. So I could see the different groups that I'm a member of or an owner of. And we can look at the settings for the groups. We looked at that a little earlier in Outlook. And then the groups also apply to, do I have SharePoint open here? I've got so many tabs. There we go. We have SharePoint open in the admin center. And then we have the all new interns site for all interns. And we can see that from a confidentiality and a security and compliance perspective, the group is private. This is DESA confidential. All new interns. The team is private. This is DESA confidential. And let's create a introduction slide. We want to welcome all the new interns to their new home at DESA for the spring. And so if we go into PowerPoint, we'll notice that it has no label to begin with, but we can also mark the files as DESA confidential. And then we can decide who can read the file, all interns, or I think the group is called all new interns. Let's do a look up there, everyone. Change, let's say I can change the file, and then full control is me. Restricted access, permissions are currently restricted. And we add our first slide. We have confidential across it. Welcome to Project X. With Copilot in the upper right, I can say add a slide about confidential projects and tenting. Let's see if tenting is something Copilot can help us with as a term. Confidential process needs a high level of security and protection. Tenting is a popular method for securing confidential projects. Tenting provides a controlled environment for sensitive projects. I was tented when I worked at Microsoft the second time. I worked there from 2005 to 2016, and I went back in 2019 till 2020. And for anybody that's unfamiliar with the term tenting, it's the idea of saying we are providing you or going to provide you confidential information, and we need you to keep that confidential. So this slide picture doesn't really speak to me about tenting. So I could go into add online pictures to change the picture to a tent. And there we go. This looks much better for talking about confidential projects and tenting. And the tenting process for me at Microsoft was training about what could happen if the confidential information I knew about the Microsoft Surface announcements was provided publicly. And they went as far at Microsoft to give different groups who had disclosure different names for the projects for the beta. So, for instance, if you're familiar with what the Chicago beta was, Teresa, Frank, thanks for joining. Pratap, anybody know what the Chicago beta for Microsoft was? I live outside Chicago, so this is one that always sticks in my memory, and it's probably one of the most popular in Microsoft's history. Anybody know what the Chicago beta was? Let me know.
I have no clue.
Let's see. Let's see if Copilot knows. I've wanted to do some Copilot pieces here, Teresa. Add a slide about Microsoft's Chicago beta. And this was public. This was general knowledge. The internet should know about this. And it's a long time ago. So even if we had issues or concerns about something, Chicago was an early beta of Windows 95.
Hmm.
It was released in 1993 because Microsoft started the process several years before Windows 95 actually was introduced. It was the first time I'm aware of, the first beta from Microsoft where they charged.
Hmm.
There was a charge to participate. So Copilot got me, let's say 90% of the way there, right? Might not be the screen photo that I want, but it put a photo and a bunch of text in place for me. And so if we ask Copilot another related question about adding a new slide or add information, let's say add information about the Windows Azure beta, because the Windows Azure project had a beta as well. Windows Azure is currently in beta. Here's one of those hallucinations. It's a cloud computing platform and infrastructure created from by Microsoft for building, deploying, and managing applications. Frank, have you heard of Windows Azure or Microsoft Azure?
Windows Azure, Dan?
Yeah, have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Or Microsoft Azure?
Yeah. So
What year?
Windows Azure became commercially available in early 2010.
Yes. Was released commercially in 2010 and in beta in 2008. The name Windows Azure was coined in 2008, and prior to Windows Azure, it was called Red Dog. And you can find this information if you search for Ray Ozzie on the internet and Red Dog. You'll find a Wikipedia article. If we add Wired to that, we'll find a Wired article where in the first couple of paragraphs, you learn a couple things about Ray Ozzie, who was Bill Gates' replacement at Microsoft for chief software architect. You learn that he was a keynote speaker in early 2008. He started at Microsoft the same year I did in 2005. However, I think he got a better signing bonus than I did. And you also find out that Ray Ozzie hates public speaking. He gave the best presentation I have ever seen at Microsoft in the year 2008 in February. And he announced to all of us under tenting, under confidentiality, that Microsoft was working on a project called Red Dog. So if I can figure out how to make the Wired advertisement go away and bring back up our Red Dog information here. There we go.
Yeah, I had a feeling that you had to be an insider to know that it was called Red Dog.
Yeah, so these are examples that I could add to our tenting slide, right? To give people
Some
concrete
history.
examples of what does it mean to be tented, what does it mean to have confidential information. This is public now, but at the time this was don't take pictures. You can be fired for announcing this because Red Dog was not widely known outside of Microsoft. Once it was announced and became Windows Azure, Wired had somebody who wrote this article that was also tented and told, you're going to experience something that Microsoft employees experience. In early 2008, I'm sure they were working on Red Dog for years before that. But that's an example of tenting. So what have we learned so far in almost 45 minutes? We've learned about Teams, Outlook, SharePoint, as well as Intra ID, and creating Microsoft 365 groups. We've looked at the fact that a group can have membership that is assigned, meaning, hey, Teresa, let's make you part of the intern group. So we try to add a member here, and we say, Teresa, C at Track Creations for E.com. And it says, do you want to add her as a guest? And it says there was an error. One person couldn't be added. And any thoughts on why? We have an all interns group. We have an owner of me. We have members of Isabella. And we have a dynamic membership rule that says you have to be part of interns or you have to be part of interns capitalized. This is why I can't add somebody directly to the group. And these are the kinds of things that, from a Teams perspective, you would just expect to work. If I go to Project Vulcan, let's say that's another confidential project that we're working on. I can see that it's set up as NDA content, but under members, I could say I want to add a member, Teresa C at Track Creations for E.com. I can add a name, Teresa Cyrus, guest, or let's say Track Creations for E, so I know where her account is. And that worked. I'm an owner of both teams. We did the same process. It worked one place, it didn't work the other.
So I have a quick questions around that. So because I was because you created those groups that was private and dynamic, security says nope, can't add her. But as an admin, could you add me manually to interns to be part of the group?
Yep. So I could say
So
display name.
this would have been an exception, right? This is an exception.
Yes.
So you can
Teresa Cyrus, and I put Track Creations for E. This is case sensitive because I used equals. I think there's also a not equals or starts with. So we might be able to do something like starts with, and I don't have to worry about the rest. And then if I save that, I now have 3 different membership rules. And those membership rules can decide who becomes a member of the group. So as soon as that gets evaluated, Teresa, to your point, like how quickly, this doesn't get evaluated immediately, but it gets evaluated over time. So some things happen immediately and some things you have to kind of wait for.
Again, so, you know, when a group is created dynamically, again, if a end user try to add in a guest and it doesn't meet the criteria, they can definitely reach out to the admin center to add that person.
Absolutely. Yeah. And dynamic groups, you know, if you were added as an intern's department, you would be automatically added because that's already one of the rules or membership rules. And to your point, admins could do this or admins could automate this. So they could come up with like a process to say, hey, I have a new intern. Her name's Teresa. She's starting on a certain date. And that could be automated to say, let's create an account or a guest and make sure her department is listed correctly. Yeah, so that's one of the things I wanted to show. Back to our slides here, we can see we had 6 slides that we created in a new presentation. And then we can see that we have several slides that were created for us by Copilot for talking about Microsoft 365 groups, Demystified. One of these is a slide that I created to show that a group, dynamic or otherwise, also has properties that you can set in whether you're receiving all emails, receiving replies only to you and the group events, or I don't want to receive group messages. I just want to be part of the group. This is on each user individually in Outlook. And Teresa, this was found by going to the group, clicking on the 3 dots, and choosing properties. So I don't know if that works in New Outlook. I would imagine it does.
It does.
Awesome. Cool. I knew you were the person to ask that of.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been playing around with that one.
Good. Good. Awesome. So any other questions? We've got several that we've answered. And our answer for Azure Active Directory was probably the 2010-2011 timeframe. Azure was announced as Windows Azure in 2008. It became generally available, as Frank mentioned, in 2010. And then in 2010 or 2011, Microsoft announced a cloud-based identity called Azure Active Directory. And they renamed it, I don't know, 2 years ago, maybe 1 year ago, to Intra ID.
Just
and that
last
was announced
year.
it was announced at Build, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think 3 days back or 2 days back, I think the Azure completed a 14 years of birthday.
So here's the slides that Copilot helped me build for our presentation today. Like we saw with the hallucination about Windows Azure is in beta, it is my responsibility with Copilot to now go through these slides that were automatically created. This is true. Add members with 1 click, collaborate on files real time, flexible group settings, control group access and permissions. We've looked at that. Customize group settings to fit your needs. We looked at that. Choose how members are added to the group. We looked at this in both assigned or dynamic, right? Or we do it this way because it's a reference to our asterisk there. We spend less time managing emails because we can send to the group instead of to individuals. Reduce the need for meetings because we could use Teams to communicate with everybody in the group and stay productive on the go. And then most importantly, to our questions from the audience, what security and compliance features do we have within this solution? Protect group content with Microsoft security features. Let's go back to that one. Control who has access to group content and monitor group activity while with auditing and reporting. So our confidential interns project, Project X, our tenting of those people, teaching them what happens. If you talk about Project X, first rule is don't talk about Project X, right? And if we tell the employees that are working on it, we say, hey, Project Y is starting. And first rule of Project Y is don't talk about Project Y. And all of a sudden, Mary Jo Foley or somebody in the business community outside of DESA Enterprises says, DESA Enterprises is working on a new project called Project Y, a company that goes about it in that way, disclosure with different names. I know if Project Y is the leak, that somebody in management, somebody that's not an intern, talked about my confidential project. So the other thing about tenting is if you tell everybody the same secret, Project X, I don't know if Teresa told, Isabella told, Dan told, we told Eva about it, and Steven Sinofsky, who created and brought to market both Windows 7 and Windows 8, said if you tell over 100 people a secret, it's no longer a secret. There was like a number he had in mind, and it wasn't thousands of people. So even with Red Dog, Microsoft took a risk telling 5,000 technical people about what was going to become Windows Azure. So it wasn't necessarily a secret. He gave us one code name. They probably had other code names internally. So if somebody said Red Dog, you knew they were part of that 5,000 person audience or the person from Wired magazine. If you said, the project is Eagle, Project Eagle gets leaked, it's a different group of people, and you could isolate down to, who spilled the beans. Was it a partner? Was it an employee? Was it an intern? Was it somebody else? We can also add, as we looked at in our PowerPoints, confidential in the PowerPoint. So that now if a screenshot of this Project X went to the internet, I know it was confidential. In Teams meetings with Teams Premium, when you're sharing content, you can put the person's email address on it. So if it says dray@desaenterprises.com, I know Dan's the person to complain to. Why did you tell everybody about Project X? It's super secretive. So with that, my friends, we have looked at Microsoft 365 groups and hopefully for you, demystified some of the concepts that we've looked at so far. And I'm open to other questions or comments from either my esteemed guests here or anybody from the audience.
I'll just say great presentation, Dan.
Thank you.
Very good, Dan. Very interesting. And great that we're on a different platform with the Global AI Summit 2024.
Yes. Are we doing a Azure and AI show today?
Yeah, I will be
Okay.
doing that later, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'll be available for that, Frank, but if I can hop on, I will. I know we're going to Chicago.
No worries. I have a bit of stuff that I done from this presentation that
Awesome.
I could expand on. I think Joseph might be joining as well because he wants to get a bit of stuff out there.
Awesome.
Yeah, I have a basketball game to go to and watch some little 8-year-olds.
Oh yeah, you have to do that.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Frank, I want to congratulate you again on our second year of the Azure and AI show every single week. That's
Yeah.
a phenomenal accomplishment. And
We
thanks for bringing
appreciate
so
that.
many guests and introducing us to so many people. And thank you for opening your home when I was in Ireland. Next time I'm in Ireland, I'll definitely look you up in Cork.
No problem, Dan. Welcome anytime.
Appreciate it.
I echo that. I hope you open your doors to me when I come to Ireland. No,
problem.
but no, thank you for allowing me, right? So I met you guys about a year ago, and thank you for allowing me to come on your show and present some um, techniques and what's going on in New Outlook for Microsoft 365 services.
Yeah, I just want to mention there as well, the journey to the cloud is on the first Thursday of every month, and that is 8 p.m. GMT. And what is it, 3?
3 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
Dan,
Yeah.
you're going to say 2
2
p.m.
p.m.
Central? He's in Central time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and I neglected, Frank, to mention you and Matthew on Noelle Russell's iHeart AI week. I was on Friday as her guest, but between the Microsoft Speakers Club, which is now the Microsoft Speakers Hub, and Journey to the Cloud, things that Matthew, Frank, Solomon put together, and Teresa's been involved with for maybe just over a year at this point, definitely last year. Noelle's point was that you're finding ways to showcase voices and people that aren't necessarily the same as you. So whether that was Frank, our goals for we want women involved. We don't want this to be the Dan, Frank, and Matthew show. And then we got Solomon involved, so we had Ireland, the UK, and the US, and now we have people in Israel and Bahrain and literally throughout the world. It's pretty amazing. Nigeria,
India.
Australia, India, exactly.
It's global. It's mind-boggling on the how global those groups are. Switzerland, just everywhere.
Yeah, Rindam Mitra is in Switzerland. Ivana is in Switzerland as well, or Ivana. Ivona. Who else? We've had, Roxana. We could consider Roxana Espejo, Switzerland and the U.S. because she spent summers, and I think she said she's been offered to go to Switzerland again this summer, which I'm super jealous of. But maybe we end up in Switzerland together sometime.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So
thanks.
We're up in the top of the hour, Dan. Thanks again for the great presentation on the Global AI Summit 2024. And thanks for joining us, Teresa. And thank you, everybody who joined us. And thanks to Partap and Mohammed for hosting this show. So thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Saturday.
Yeah, so that's...
Do you want me to end the session, Frank, or?
I think I clicked on the end there. Is it coming up?
I still see it as live.
Yeah, just click it there then.
Yeah.
I was having a few issues with my broadband modem. They're sending me out